you know, something I encounter a lot is people having a lot of anxiety, that almost mimics the symptoms of an allergic reaction. So I'm sure you've experienced that
Yes.
too. So it gets to this like point where it's really tricky of, oh my gosh, am I having anaphylaxis and these are the early signs, or am I just
Mhm.
having a panic attack or, feeling really
Mhm.
anxious? So I know there's some great diagrams out there that, show the symptoms of
Yes.
both, where they can overlap, which, is really helpful to look at. So I
Mhm.
recommend everyone kind of looks at that and, familiarizes themselves with the symptoms, and also like has a plan of action for both, whether it's an allergic reaction or it is a
Mhm.
panic attack. And so one thing that, some of my clients like to do is, obviously sometimes they'll take their antihistamine, obviously depends on each person what their doctor recommends, but
Mhm.
um even if they're in that I'm unsure, sometimes that's something that they do. But also if they've been able to determine that it probably is more anxiety, a lot of my younger clients, they love having a little piece of like super sour candy,
Yes.
um,
Uh-huh.
especially if some of the symptoms are like mouth related or tongue related.
Mhm.
It can really help to like distract and focus on the
Yes.
new sensation. So that's something that a lot of the kiddos I've worked with, they really like that. Um, and
Mhm.
then distraction is a big one, focusing on something else. And, when mom checks in or, after a certain period of time, they'll realize like, oh, like that was anxiety. I'm not having those symptoms anymore.
Right.
So those have been helpful for sure.
That thing you raise of like, is it anxiety? Is it an allergic reaction? I think is maybe the single most complicated question I get.
Hmm.
A thorny issue because there's no way to know. There's like
Yep.
literally no way to know for sure when you're in that moment.
Yep.
And so I've thought about that so much. And you're right, there are those Venn diagrams that show,
Yeah.
there's clearly some things that are anaphylaxis and
Yes.
clearly some things that are not, but then
Yeah.
that overlap is really confusing. And one of the ways I've just kind of learned to even coach myself through thinking about it as a parent and then to help other families is the question is not, is this anxiety or an allergic reaction? You're having anxiety for sure. Like we know that. So the
Mhm.
question is this a severe allergic reaction? Like, is this an early sign that something more severe is coming down the road? And like for some reason that helps ground me in, okay, I don't actually have to decide as a one or the other. The question is a both. And
Mhm.
so really, we can be doing the right appropriate things from an allergy management point of view to monitor that, because one of the things I say is like, if you're in anaphylaxis, I don't know many people who are anaphylactic and don't know it.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So almost by definition, again, in those situations, it's unclear, it's vague. It kind of could be anything, which is what makes it so confusing. So thinking like, okay, so what is the protocol for that situation? And to have a protocol that you've checked out with your, board certified allergist who's on board with, this is how you would manage a more minor allergic reaction while you're waiting to see, does it progress to something else. And then in the meantime, here's your allergy, I call it an allergy action plan. So
Mhm.
I created a form just like, FAIR has its emergency care plan. I have an anxiety action plan that I
Mhm.
use for people. Similarly, like, okay, so this is how you just walk through it. Because again, I believe in plans. I believe in thinking about these things ahead of time and having something written on your phone to coach you in the moment through it. But man, that's a hard issue to have when you are so scared and you just don't know.
It is. And like you said, it's tricky because it is like a real safety concern. It's not like this is something we're making up. Like, no, the threat, is real.
Mhm.
So I think it is important to, yeah, to have a plan, with your allergist of what do I do in the more
Mhm.
mild situation where I'm kind of waiting to see, and then to follow that. And then to have, like you said, an allergy action plan where you have steps you can take to, mitigate that anxiety. And then to have like the people around you on board and,
Mhm.
have that plan, because a lot of times when you're at that like 8 out of 10 of anxiety, a lot of the skills and the knowledge, it goes out the
Right
window.
out.
you're
Yeah.
so up high, you can't even access that part of your brain. So to have someone around you that can say like, "Hey, like let's look at that plan, you know, where
Mhm.
what can we do right now?" I think that I remember you sending me something a while ago. So
Mhm.